The title for today's show is Mama, Don't Let Your Babies Grow Up to Be Fat. And so we're going to talk about what is it you could have learned, or you can as moms, grandmoms, aunties, or even just teachers. What can you teach the young moms who are now trying to warp their minds around an obesity epidemic for children that's bigger than it's ever been documented? So I want to show you what a pattern of eating can look like, and I'm going to break down how these images look over the next few slides. The reason we have a 2-day cycle that I want you to look at is that between day 1 and day 2 is when they're sleeping. Hopefully, if you're a lucky parent. You have a time where food stops, the being sleeps, and then they wake up the next morning and the cycle starts over. When I look at the first meal of the day, that's about how high the insulin would spike and fall. The next one goes, and then those are the 3 meals that I would ask children get in a day. And so what you're looking at is there's 3 responses to eating. There's 3 meals. The insulin goes up, it comes back down. The insulin goes up, it comes back down. And overnight, it gets back down to a very nice, low, and normal level. So as you look at this chart, I want you to know that this is for children. So if you look at that top line, we're looking at insulin as it rises high and then falls back down, and then rises high and falls back down. So I put the meal times along with those curves in the insulin. Insulin is drawn there in red on the top line, as it was at 7:30, and then that was before they went to school. They headed to school. Their school fed them at about 11:30. And then they had supper time when they got home after whatever after school activities were there. And this would be what I would call an ideal eating pattern for children. I get many requests asking me to say, is it okay for kids to do keto? And I hesitate to answer that because, again, there's a lot that can be in a question. Is the child healthy? Are they on medications? Is there any developmental problems? This is why your primary care pediatrician would do a better job to specifically answer the question. But as knowing I have a diverse audience of parents and grandparents and teachers, I just want to show you, as a mom who's just left this season of life where kids go to school, you get them up many times to get them to their school on time and us to work on time. We're dropping them off at school around 7. Sometimes their school would be the one to feed them breakfast, but if I was batting 1,000, we would get up in the morning, we'd practice piano together, they would eat as the other one was practicing, and then we would head them off into a school day with a belly filled full of, we ate scrambled eggs. Even when I wasn't trying to be keto, we ate scrambled eggs for breakfast many, 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 many times. So, but the meal happened at 7:30, and I just want you to look at that. So as the insulin rose and on its way back down, the first thing that I can remember getting from the first grade teacher from child number 1, okay, who's now in college, the very first task that first grade teacher, who was an outstanding teacher, but one of the first things she tackled when we moved to this community was, now you need to be in the snack schedule. And I'm like, what's the snack schedule? And she goes, oh, it's like, now she didn't say this, but it was practically discussed as this is a law that we must give these kids snacks every 2 hours. And if we don't have that in the budget, so we ask the parents to volunteer and go into the sign up and make sure that one parent donates the snacks at 9:30 in the morning, another one offers the snacks at 1:30, so that they get a meal right before they go to school. If they don't have access to that, they can show up to school and the school will fill them full of carbohydrates. By 2 hours later, about 9:30 in the morning is when a first grade teacher starts that snack pattern. This group of kids eats between 11 and 12, so about 11:30 I put as an average. Again, 2 hours later is when they got their lunch. 2 hours after that is when the 1:30 snack mom was needed to have her snacks available. And heavens forbid if you forgot to send your snacks. They did have actually backup snacks in case the parent forgot. It was that important. So then what happens at 3:30 is you pick your kiddos up from school. And if you don't do it, somebody else does it, or they go to an after-school program. And what is the first thing that happens in the after-school program? They need another snack. It's been 2 hours. And if there wasn't a snack, if the teacher's like, I just think we keep feeding these kids too often. Oh my goodness. Not only did they get the wrath from parents. They got the wrath from children who were like withdrawing from sugar. Because now they've got that 3:30, they got them until 5:30, and my goodness, if mom doesn't have that supper ready by 6 o'clock, she has crabby kids. And she can then do some homework or maybe, bath time or whatever, and right before bed, what happens? Oh my goodness, they need another snack. So that somewhere in the night is when they withdraw from the sugar. It sinks down into the middle of the night, and I know parents who said, I just have juice right beside their bed in case they wake up and are hungry. So again, they were stimulating their insulin in the middle of the night. What this red line is the typical insulin found in a kid who gets just normal 101 America first grade teacher. What is she good at? She coordinates the snacks, baby. She has every 2 hours that she is making sure that those kids had a way to put glucose back into their system so that they could keep their concentration. Except they did it at the price of an inflammatory state called insulin. So again, looking back at the bottom, we have the midnight, which is the moon. We have the high noon of the yellow circle of the sun, and then we go back to midnight, which is when that insulin finally hits bottom. By the next morning at 7:30, then again at 9:30, 11:30, 1:30, 3:30, 6 o'clock, at 8 o'clock, and then the insulin falls back down again. And this doesn't happen one day a year. This isn't Christmas. This is typical. This is what kids do in today's world. And if you're the mom who says, well, watch what happens to the crinkle when there's a food allergy in the class, like peanuts or something. And so now your snacks they have to be tasty. Your kids are going to get judged on whether or not your mom brought good snacks. This is a real thing. I'm not making this up. If you do what I do, which is make a big pepperoni and cheese platter, then the other parents bring crackers. I'm like, you're kidding me. And juice boxes. I'm like, this is not a $50 meal. This is supposed to be a snack. Don't let the food become the focus. But I do think those are the backgrounds for America, that the food has become the focus. All right, adults, you're not off the hook. Here is what I think the top line would be an ideal adult eating pattern. And you'll notice there are only 2 spikes in there. Now, that doesn't mean tomorrow you wake up doing that. I do not want you to start that. This is an ideal pattern of eating that when I get my students or my patients into a place where they can sustain life, it really is a pattern of eating that only stimulates the production of insulin 2 times a day. Not what is below, which when these kiddos grow up to be adults, again, that doesn't mean that they're 50. That means that they're 16, 17, 18. They're many of especially the girls have reached their maximum growth pattern by that mid to late teenage years. That also is where their metabolism is set. And if you want to find an addictive eating pattern, it happens when you carb them every 2 hours. So as those young women or as those teenage boys get into their young 20s, they now know that they are supposed to eat 4 to 5 times a day. And that leads to adults that also produce far too much insulin. Now, I've made these adults pretty healthy because in the night, their insulin did not sink. It sunk back down to what would be considered a low or normal insulin. But there are many patients who show up and say, Doc, I need help with this ketogenic diet. I'm trying to lose weight. They say you can reverse diabetes. There's this thing called autophagy. I want that. And the enemy for autophagy is this flaming, evil insulin. And I get people writing into the channel telling me how I demonize insulin. So I did make an insulin that isn't demonized. He's the one where you are in a healthy body. And if I look at the proportion of folks that have high insulin versus normal insulin, it's not a subtle number. It is a very big number for the proportion of people that they don't even know their insulin is high. So as I look at the statement, Mama, don't let your babies grow up to be fat, what does that really mean? It means that when you're looking at this slide, where you get to decide how high and how long will your insulin spike be. My patients that are trying to reverse insulin resistance, they are looking for undoing the insulin Except insulin isn't something that you can just measure. I mean, you can, but it's not going to give you the answer. Insulin is incredibly fluid. It changes with your mood. With this study, they kind of took out all the controls and they said, let's just look at what happens when they eat only this. Let's study them for 6 hours. Let's use the best machines at the time. Again, this study came out, I think, 2008 or something. Where they said, let's look carefully at what the insulin did. So they had the best measuring tools, they had a really controlled situation, and they still had enough variability that they had to do some tweaking after they did their first try. So looking at this chart though, when you say, I eat all fat, but I do it 5 times a day, and you say, why am I not losing weight? And part of that answer is quit stimulating your insulin. If you want to eat until you're full. That is a very healthy and important part of not just keto, but nutrition. Snacking all day long, especially if you grew up eating food every 2 hours, or you've had diabetes, or you've had insulin resistance, or you've just been overweight and you don't know why. And I'm here to tell you it's probably the insulin that's not working right. And they're like, well, how do I fix that? And I'm saying quit stimulating the insulin.
Please subscribe to my channel. And don't forget to click the notification bell so you don't miss out on any new videos. Stay tuned.